Okay, so officially welcome back to Think Differently. I'm seeing some old faces and some new, sorry, nobody's old. I'm seeing some regular faces and some new faces. It's good to see everybody. As I said, if you're live, please tell me all the things in the chat. I will definitely answer questions as we go. We're talking about what's working in 2026. I'm so annoyed at all of the fear mongering out there of like people aren't buying and shit's changing and la la la. Yes, things have changed. Of course, industries change. That's like very normal. And also, I literally said this in an email that's coming out sometime this week or next. Like, please don't let anybody tell you that people aren't buying. People are buying. People are buying. We just have more discerning buyers. So I really, really want to talk about what's working. I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about the industry changes just in case you're not aware, and especially because this will help you understand why the things that I'm talking about are working. Does that make sense? But we're not going to spend a lot of time on what's changed because personally I feel like I've talked about that ad nauseum. If this is new information, you're like, oh, I didn't know and also the other reason we're going to talk about this briefly is I don't want you blaming yourself. This is the other thing that like sometimes when we are running a business, if we are acting in some way in isolation, I feel like part of my job or part of the job that I've decided is my job is to stay apprised of what's happening, to be connected to people in the industry, and to be talking about these things with my colleagues, with my coach, and to be tracking I'm always up in the business of my clients, and I work all my client work is one-on-one, so I'm always like deep in the work, deep into the business of my clients. And so I feel like part of my job is to let you know what's happening so that we can all move together. But I don't want you to be blaming yourself, because if something's changed in the industry and that is affecting your business and you didn't know that it was changing, most of us are just blaming ourselves and wondering what we've done wrong. And I think there's just too much of the blaming ourselves for pretty much anything, my women friends. So no more, we're not blaming ourselves. We're gonna just get to work and talk about what's working. But I do want you to know, just briefly, if this is new information, you're like, holy crap, I've never heard this before. I've got a couple of other, I'm sorry, I have hair in my lip. I've got a couple of other Think Differently's that I've done where I talked a lot more last year about what was changing in the industry. So if you want to deep dive on that, just put a note here in the chat and I'll send you a DM or an email with links to the other ones so we can deep dive. Okay. So what's working? Let me just tell you a couple things that we're going to talk about today, especially if you're on the replay, so that you can know, like, I always feel like if you want to stay with me for an hour, you want to know what I'm going to be talking about. These are the three things. There's really four things that are working. So one thing that we're going to be talking about is the action that all of my clients are taking, and my clients are in all kinds of industries, niches. I have some brick and mortar clients, like they're doing all different kinds of things, but this is one of the actions that pretty much every single one of my clients is doing, I'm doing as well, that's getting them epic results that nobody wants to deal with. Everybody eye rolls me when I suggest this, but it really works. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the approach and the mindset that I think is the biggest difference right now between people that are thriving and people that are treading water, and it's mindset, not strategy. We need both, but this one is a mindset one. And I really don't know a single person. I really sat down and tried to think, like, is there anybody that I know that's thriving right now in business that isn't adopting this mindset, whether I can see it on the outside or whether I know, kind of on the inside? And I really can't think of a single person that's not at least paying attention to this. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll also talk about the thing that's worked the best for me in business, and the thing that's worked the best for me. I've been in business for 8.5 years. I think I started using this maybe after year 2-ish, 2 or 3. And it's worked for me every single year, but it's working for me even more now. And so that's the other thing that we'll talk about today. Okay, if you're live, a couple of quick things. One, I want to know what you think is working or what's not working for you in your business, because I want to see if maybe we can connect some dots here. So if you feel comfortable sharing that, please put that in the chat, or just let me know, like, why you're here. Why did this topic speak to you? Do you feel like things are working, but you're just not sure what shifted? Is it just like what brought you here? I'd love to know. The other thing, if you're live, I give away a free mini coaching session once a month to people who come and join me live. If you want to spend time with me, I would love to give back. So if that is something that you would like to enter to win, just put enter me in the chat. That's all you have to do. And we draw the names at the end of every month. Okay. Did I cover all my things? No, I didn't. Let me put my links in the chat. This is why I have notes, you guys. Let me put my links in the chat. This is, I've got a masterclass coming up this month. Next week, actually, I've got, if you want to watch some replays of these events, sign up for another one. All my links are there. Book a consultation to work with me. Okay. Oh, one more person's coming in. This is great. Okay. Very quick level set. Again, so that you're not making yourself wrong. But most of today, all of today is we're going to be talking about what's actually working. So a couple things, if you're not aware, the market is saturated. We've got a lot more people entering the online space and also leaving corporate, right? So there's just more people. The market is saturated. Personally, I think this is a good thing. I keep hearing like, oh my God, everybody's a coach right now. Yeah, I actually love that, because when I first started my business, like, I don't know, people in my corporate circles are kind of like, really? What are you doing? You're like a life coach or something? You know, like they don't get it. That's okay. They don't have to get it. I don't need that credibility. But I do think the coaching industry also is gaining in credibility and not going anywhere. So same for the online space, I think, right? When a market is saturated, like it ain't going anywhere. So we can take some sort of, what do you want to call it? Like job security in that. I personally think this is the wave of the future, is working virtually. So no wonder everybody is coming into our world and saying like, oh, maybe that's a good idea, right? But it also means that we need to stand out, right? Because there's so many people. So neither good nor bad, it just is. AI is here, it's not going anywhere. People are still using it to create content. So if you're talking about standing out online, AI content, I'm sorry, it's just not as good as human content. And so we're having to scroll past the crap, right? Then you add in the fact that everybody's overwhelmed. There's way too many ridiculous world events going on. All kinds of stuff is happening. We are not, right? If we just compare like today's society to 2020, when we were home bored, looking for like, I was like, what workshop can I consume next about my business? I had nothing else to do, right? This is not that, right? People are very much back to work. This is not that. And so the overwhelm and the like overstimulation is real. And so again, if we want to stand out online, we need to grab people's attention, because their brains are hardly even looking at the social, to begin with. And so again, not that it can't be done, but this just means we need to stand out. Also, my friends at Social Media Land, our platform owners, they've done whatever they've done, fine. Reach us down, right? So again, harder to stand out online doesn't mean that you can't do it. And then the other piece that I think is really important to share is, and all of this is like in the last 2-ish plus years, trust has been broken, right? Like if you were in the online space in 2020, 2021, even 2022, there were all the gurus, and like people would just like sign up for stuff and be like, that person sounds like they know what they're talking about. I'm ready to invest. Let's go, right? And then they ended up with in some cases, they ended up with there were lots of bait and switches, like sign up to work with me, but then you actually get my coach on my staff instead of working with me, but you thought that you were signing up to work with me. Or people sign up for these huge mastermind, big investment mastermind programs, and there's barely any support involved, barely any personalized attention, all of that kind of stuff, right? So trust is broken, has been broken, and that means buyers are more discerning. Personally, I think that's a good thing. I think that we need to be discerning buyers. But again, just to sort of level set with like all of the things that are happening. This is like this is a bonus. This is not really what we're talking about today, but we were talking about people being overwhelmed. And I think last year in particular, like there was this really big push, especially on Instagram, to do short form content. And that's what's working. It's stop the scroll, right? And like that works, and that is important. And that is an important element of creating content. Again, I'm not going to get into like the nitty gritty of content creation right now. We can talk about that another day. But what I'm seeing now this year, and sort of like from towards maybe like Q4 of last year, is the reemergence of long form content. Look, short form and long form have always worked. We've always frankly needed both. There's all different reasons for both. And so I don't want to like, there is no like this works better than this works, but I am happy as a long form content girl. I'm happy to see the long form content coming. I feel that it is making a bit of a comeback in terms of like people recognizing they need to use it. We've always needed to use it, but it's just kind of coming back into people's awareness. And I'm happy to hear that. Happy to see that. I think that's sort of like, if I was going to make a prediction, I think that's going to keep going. So overall, it's a buyer's market, right? If we just think about the real estate market, there's always it's either a buyer's market or a seller's market. We're just in a buyer's market. It's fine. But these changes are asking us overall to be better at business, better at the foundational principles of business, better at the basics, better at like sales, marketing, developing relationships, having a customer journey, all of those things. And so I'm not mad at that, because I think that is one, we all need those skills. These are skills that we're always going to be honing. So why not? And two, if you can thrive or even sustain your business in a buyer's market, imagine what you can freaking do in a seller's market. So hang in there. It will shift again. And the other thing I want to say about, like, I just don't think this is a bad thing. Again, it's frustrating when things change. I'm not at all diminishing that. I had my own sort of reckoning with that as well. I had to make some changes in my business too. I'm not impervious to this. But I also think because this is a relatively new industry, having a buyer's market is a good thing. It is going to weed out people that didn't actually want to be business owners. They were just kind of trying something, right? It's going to weed out people who don't have quality products and services, and the people who just don't want to do it. Like the people who thought this was a get rich quick scheme, or like a, if I just do some stuff online and throw some content out there, I'll just make a bunch of money. Like those days are over, and that I just don't think that's a bad thing. Like this is what business is. And I think for many years, this industry was able to like get by, like kind of half-assing the business side of things for many people, not everyone. But I just don't think that's the case anymore. And I just don't think that's a bad thing, because I think if you're offering a business, you need to have business skills, and these are the things that can be learned, right? These are the things that can be learned. So does that make sense? I'm going to check the comments. Those are all the things I wanted to say before we move into what's freaking working. Okay. Lots of people say they're interested, but they don't sign up. Yep, I think that's also the other thing I want to add. Thank you for saying that, Jen. With the more discerning buyers comes longer sales cycles. So I would say don't make that wrong. Like, yes, if somebody says they're going to sign up and they never sign up, like, okay, we can just recognize the no and move on. But I think, because I think sometimes people are just too nice. But sales cycles are longer. So and especially the higher ticket offer that you have, the longer the sales cycle is going to be. And that's always been the case, but most people's sales cycles are longer than they were a few years ago. And so overall, I think if we make ourselves wrong about that, we're going to like leave money on the table, right? We're going to be like, oh, that didn't work, moving on, right? So like one of the things we're going to talk about today, spoiler alert, is like we need to stay in it. We need to stay in something longer because the sales cycles are longer, because buyers are more discerning. And so it's going to take them longer to buy. Doesn't mean it needs to take a long time, but leaning into that and making that right as opposed to fighting against it, I think is a big key here. We'll talk a little more about that. It's getting longer, yes. And further reach to get clients, yes. And then somebody else said, yes, agree. People are so busy these days and have a higher tendency to ghost. Lots of ads on social now too. Yes, 100%. And I think you're right. Like, it's not just that they're overwhelmed, they're busy, right? And those things really go together. So a couple things around that we'll talk about. And yeah, there's a ton of ads on social. I'm actually part of that. I started running ads this year as well. And I think not to make like, it's not wrong to go organic. It's not wrong there's all the things, but I do think like one reason reach is down, like just to be very practical, is like these social media platforms, it's free, right? Like it's free. So we are not prioritized in many ways if we're only using organic, and also that's okay. And I don't want to say that you have to run ads. I'm doing it for the right reasons for my business, but not all my clients are, and I'm not saying that that's the strategy that you need. But it is, again, something to scroll through, right? It's more things to scroll through. I also think that's why people are liking Substack. PS. Okay. People are busy. Lots of ads. Enter me. Okay, good. Lots of enter me's. This is good news for those who are deeply invested and committed to their business. I couldn't agree more. How long is longer? Until. I love it. Just until, yeah. I mean, every business is different. And I think that's the other thing is like maybe go back and look, what were your sales cycles in prior years, and track how long, like when you sign a client, go back and look into your data. How long were they in your world before they signed? And again, just making that right, and look at what were all the touch points that they went through before they signed. We do need more time with people. That's the other piece about discerning buyers, right? The numbers are always, it's like you need 17 touch points, you need this many touch points, you need this many hours of time with someone before they buy. There's all the numbers everywhere, and every time I look it up, the number is different. But my advice is to go back into your data and look and see how long is it that people are taking, generally speaking. And don't let that be a self-fulfilling prophecy. There will always be outliers. There will always be shorter people with a shorter cycle and people with a longer cycle. But that might also help you to, one, not make yourself wrong, two, look at the touch points that people are taking from that, and then help you make some decisions around that. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Things that are working. The first thing that's working, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one because you guys probably, if you're here, if you've been in my world for more than 5 minutes, I would probably annoy you if you weren't this. You're good at what you do. You've probably built a business around work that you love. You've probably put out your product or your service in from the perspective of like, this is the work I'm here to do. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to help people. This is my zone of genius. This is my talent. This is how, this is the work I want to do. I was joking with somebody the other day, like I'll go to the bar to meet friends and I like end up in the corner talking to somebody one-on-one about life. Like, and no wonder I am a one-on-one coach. Like that's just who I am. It's how I want to spend my time. Right. So probably you've built your business around that, right? That is what's working right now, right? Because if trust is down and people want to work with actual humans who give a crap about what they're doing, like you already have that in spades, and that's always going to be working for you. Your job really is just to make sure that you're able to reflect that in your marketing and in your conversations with people, so they get how talented you are, they get that you can help them. But that is what's working, and I think it's really important. That's always worked. That's always been a huge differentiator between you and somebody else who does what you're doing, but they're just doing it, for a couple years to get their kids through school, or they're just doing it for whatever other reason. Not that that's wrong, right? But like they're not doing it also for the love of the work. That makes things so much more sustainable. That makes you better at what you're doing. And so again, you already have that, and I just feel that it's important to articulate that to you when we're talking about what's working. And again, this is stuff that's always worked. So being good at what you do. Also, if you're in my world, I can pretty much make an assumption, again, because of my content doesn't attract people who this isn't. You're probably really ethical. You're probably delivering exactly what people asked for when, what people paid for. You're not baiting and switching. You are trustworthy. You are delivering good quality product, service, etc. That's again, that's always worked. Like people who have a crappy service just generally do not stay in business. But again, that's also what's working right now, because people can I don't want to say I think because we're more discerning and because we've got bots in the world, it's like, oh, how refreshing, an actual human who loves what they do, who's good at it, who's ethical. Thanks, I'll buy that, right? So just know that that's working for you, and anytime that you can elevate that is important. And then just being human, being yourself, being passionate about what you do, communicating that is always going to be the thing that stands out, because nobody can replicate the you-ness of that. And the only other thing I want to add about just sort of ethics and delivering on what you promised is the other thing that's happening, right? Is people are boycotting, right? Target, Tesla, etc. People are boycotting, which means we care about where we spend our dollars. We care about the values of the companies that we're, so that's what I meant by ethical, but like really it's whatever your ethics are, whatever your values are. If that's not front and center, if that's not communicated somehow, somewhere in your marketing, I highly recommend that you do that at whatever level feels good to you, so that people who align to your value, people really are buying with their values, right? They are voting with their dollars. And so letting people know that side of you, letting people get to see a little bit behind the curtain is working. Okay, so you've already got that. So you don't need to make a to-do around that, unless you just want to elevate it. But again, I just think it's important to articulate, like that's just something that you've probably already got that's working. Okay, that's number one. Number two. This is the one that everybody eye rolls me for, so that's why I'm saying it second. After like buttering you up with like, you're fine, everything's good. Taking the extra step, going the extra mile. I know it's so freaking annoying. And you're probably already doing that. And actually, my clients that eye roll me about this the most are the ones who have burned out from overworking, who have been perfectionists and are recovering from that, who have overgiven in the past and like gave away all this stuff for free and then never made an offer for somebody to pay them. And so they're burning out from that, right? I'm being a little dramatic, but like any version of that, overgiving or having been burned in the past from going the extra mile, because that's what most high achievers and women and caretakers and good business people do. But it's very easy to take that too far, right? I know that I have. I know I'm like, oh yeah. I offered like 27 pieces of something that I could have just offered one for. So just to be really, really honest, like this is something that I think we've all learned from. And I think that's why sometimes people eye roll me, or I shouldn't say eye roll, that's not quite the right word, but like, I don't want to, is sort of like the conversation that I'm having with my clients. And so none of this is to say that we are moving in the direction of being perfectionists, of overworking, of pushing through anything. That's not what I mean with going the extra mile and taking the extra step. But because nobody else is, because everybody else is trying to automate the crap out of everything, because there's another because people are looking to connect with you. That's why going the extra mile works. So let me just give you a couple of examples of what I mean by this, so that you can find the right like boundary around it. Personal outreach, and following up, right? I don't mean necessarily, you can totally do cold DMs. I actually don't think that that's a terrible thing when you do it with authenticity and you're generally trying to create a connection in a relationship. But what I think is important about personal follow-up and just reaching out to people is that we are doing that without the automation, that we, again, use ManyChat, use whatever you want. I'm not saying that, but like that we are engaging in real conversations with our people at any level, whether they're cold or warm, and that we're following up, right? If somebody says they might want to work with me, I'm not like sitting around waiting for them to decide. I mean, I'm letting them go through their process, but I'm also going to follow up with them in a week or however long, depending on the conversation that we had. If they said they were doing something all summer and then they check back in the fall, then I'd probably reach out in August, right? I'm not going to ask them to do all the work for me. I'm here to help them make a decision, and it's my job to let them know that I'm interested in working with them, and so I'm going to follow up, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm following up from the perspective of like, hey, have you decided yet? Hurry up, right? I'm not talking about it from that perspective, but going the extra mile, I cannot tell you how many people has specifically said, I'm so grateful to you for following up with me. Thank you for reaching back out. I've been thinking about this and I haven't moved. Like whatever it is, right? People need, because they're busy. Who said that? Jen or Michelle, somebody said that, right? Like because people are busy, because we're overwhelmed, because all the things. It's not that people forgot necessarily. But again, if we're if we're creating relationships with people, that extra step really matters. And it's just the one that most of us, want to shy away from because it feels confronting, or we don't want to be the slimy salesperson. Everybody hates me for this one too. These are just examples of taking the extra step. Giving something away for free that you would have charged for 3 years ago. Like, I'm not saying give it all away for free. Please, please, please don't hear that. But I do think that back to the discerning buyers, back to the longer sales cycles, back to needing more touch points. Sometimes that gift, I'm literally giving you guys like stuff that I'm talking to my clients about right now. I'm giving you this for free, right? Giving you a chance to see how I think about business, how my brain works, the results that my clients are getting. I'm going to share a couple of those in a minute to give you some examples of this so you don't think that I'm crazy. This helps with a touch point. This helps to develop a relationship. And so I could have charged for this as a workshop, but this just actually starts my business in creating touch point. It just has a different purpose. And so again, freebies, that's a whole nother conversation, but it's an example of going the extra mile. It's an example of a way that you can nurture that relationship and shorten those sales cycles. And then the final one I want to share with regard to this one of taking the extra step, going the extra mile, is adding a personal touch. Like, if you see something on the street that reminds you of a person who is a potential client or a client of yours, reach out to them and send them a link, right? Like, just like real stuff, don't make stuff up. But the personal touch, and the personal touch, I think is, I don't know that I have a good example, like a generic good example for this, but I do think that one thing that I'm seeing a lot in my clients' businesses, and something that I've done my whole business, is we don't just do this for the people who are in our pipeline. We don't just do this for our audience. Again, we have to have boundaries and not overgive, and we're going to talk about that in next week's masterclass. But when you have a paying client, I cannot tell you like how many times a client has said like, oh my gosh, and again, I'm doing like this much above and beyond. Like, I love to over deliver to my clients. I am not over giving. I am not overdoing it. I am like, it is not something that is draining the life out of me, and I'm not being a perfectionist. But I can't tell you how many times clients have said like, oh, that was so meaningful to me. Like, that was not in our contract. You gave me this. Thank you. That was so meaningful. Like, why my clients work with me generally for a year or more. Like, that matters. That matters to me in terms of my fulfillment. That matters to them in terms of their enjoyment and appreciation of the service that I provide. It helps them make more money in their business. But it also helps my business because it takes a lot more time and energy. I remember how many times I've said this when I was in my corporate job. Hey guys, you could like fire those people and then rehire them next year, and you're going to spend a whole lot more money than if you just keep them now. It takes a lot more. That's employees back in my corporate days, but like, it takes so much more time and energy to create a new client than it does to just hold on to an existing client. And of course, not every client needs to stay forever and all of those things. Those are normal things for people to cycle out, and not every business model has a long-term client sort of set up, and that's okay. That's how my business is set up, but that doesn't always need to be. That's not for everybody. But when you do have a business set up like that, your business model is set up like that, then taking the time to go, what is it that I can do to like surprise and delight my clients that are paying me right now, because that's actually where the money is. But it's also where the enjoyment is, and that's where the freedom comes from, honestly, I think. And where the better, you're just deepening those relationships. So don't underestimate going the extra mile. I feel like so often people are talking about that in terms of client attraction. That works too. Don't underestimate, like, what can you do for your existing clients? I do think, and I just also want to say, I have been on the receiving end of, I'm going to be mindful to keep this private, but I've been on the receiving, I was a client in someone else's business years ago who was too busy for me, and I was paying them, and they were too busy for me. They should have, they just had they had too much going on. And I did not feel important. And that did not feel good to me. And I'm not talking about not going the extra mile, like this was in the negative. It wasn't horrible, it wasn't bad, but, and also I'm a coach and I'm very perceptive, and I can tell when somebody can't hold me, and I wanted to be held. This wasn't a coach, this was a service provider, but I wanted that person to support me. That's why I was paying them, so that I didn't have to hold the thing that I was delegating them to. And they just were not in a space where they could do it, and that did not feel supportive to me. And so just to say, like, I think that's really important to see the opposite of the taking the extra step, because when you're a paying client, you don't want to be taken for granted, and you do want to feel special and important. And if we're not treating our paying clients as special and important, that's why some of the gurus have fallen off their pedestal. But it's also why maybe some people, I also see very heart-centered, very well-intended, very ethical, value-centered people prioritizing, because marketing takes more now, prioritizing that over their existing clients. And that will always and ever make that harder. That's actually like creating more of what you don't want. Right? Because it's just going to mean clients aren't going to stay, and now you're back in the like marketing cycle at another level. Is that making sense? Okay, I've got a couple of examples, and then we'll move on to 3 and 4. In the service industry, taking the extra step will create a point of difference that separates others. Most people don't share that much care and concern. Exactly. It is a differentiator. I completely agree. Yep. Yeah. Okay, couple of examples from my clients on this one. So one client I helped her to put together a high ticket offer. She was offering individual, like single sessions when she came to me, and she wanted to put a high ticket coaching program together. And so we structured that together. We put the marketing together, we positioned the messaging, all of the things. And then before she had that out in public and launched officially to her audience, she sold 4 people into that high ticket program before anybody else knew about it. And that's because she went back to some of her favorite people that had been regularly booking recurring single sessions, and she gave them a special offer that she gave it to her audience when she launched it. But she gave them an early opt-in, and they took it because she's great, right? And they were like, oh great, this is like the next thing, right? So she just, not only that was an example of going the extra mile for people who were already paying her, but just taking that extra step, right? She could have just gone out publicly and hoped that her existing clients would get it, but she reached out specifically to her favorites and to the ones that she thought were the best fit. Right? Because not everybody's going to be a fit for a longer term, container. And so we really sat down and looked at her clients and talked through who's the best fit, what does that make? And then she reached out to them. What is the message that we want to share with them? This is why we think it's a good fit for you. This is why she thinks it's a good fit for them. And she had that conversation with them. I would love to be sold to like that. That's a really easy, right? And then again, she put it out publicly and sold more. I think 5 or 6 more just in the first month or 2. But that is an example, I think, of just going the extra mile, and how that's so much easier than launching a program. She launched it too, right? But just to remember some of these things, we feel like it feels like too much, but making it personal is the case here. Similarly, I had another client who 80% of her high ticket sales came from making an offer to somebody in a lower ticket program. She specifically offered to them individually and sold 80% of her high ticket sales for the whole year. 80% came from just reaching out personally to the people who were already paying her in lower ticket programs. Another client is in a launch right now, so TBD on the final pieces. But she had offered to people in her pipeline, to people in her pipeline that sort of privately, individually, before she launched, similarly to the first one, and she's already got two people already signed up before she went publicly live with that. Right, brand new program, nobody heard of it. right? Like she's doing the whole like, hey, this is what I do now, conversation. That is a heavy lift. That's moving. She's already got 2 people in the program before she even went to that. Okay. Helpful? Questions? Ready for number 3? Okay. Yes, at number 3, you can eye roll me about too. But I just think it's really important, and I alluded to this in the beginning, right? So if we're talking about what we really need in 2026 is we need to have a solid strategy. I'm sorry, like we just do. We just need a solid strategy, and we need to be better at the basics. And so number 3, what's working? And this is a mindset thing as well as a strategy thing. This is the mindset thing I talked about. That I see that's working for everybody that I know that's doing well. Everybody that I know that's doing well is executing on this mindset, which is simply being willing to stay in it and get better at something. And I have a couple of examples, but really you could apply that to any of the foundational principles of business, sales, marketing. I mean, I've been in business 8.5 years. I help my clients with their marketing. I'm still working on my marketing. Like I don't think I will ever not be working on my marketing, or like looking periodically at my sales process and seeing if there's any refinements that need to be made based on buyer behavior, based on feedback that people are giving me, right? When people tell me they're like, oh, thank you for doing this. I'm like, okay, let me make a note about that and see how can I do that more, right? If they ask me a question, oh, let me make a note on that and make sure I can sort of find a way to put that into my content or into my sales page or wherever it needs to go. So the basics, the foundational principles, it's just the job that we're always going to be doing, right? And so again, if that's what 2026 and frankly 25 and part of 24 was asking of us, then that's always only going to ever make us better when it is a seller's market. It's going to help us ride out. I personally am going to be in business for a long time. There will be another buyer's market, and I will be like, great, let me dig in my back pocket and remind myself that I need to like pick some of this back up, right? So this will only ever help you. And I think if you've been in business more than, let's say 3 or 4 years, it can be really confronting, because I've had so many clients say to me like, well, what's wrong? I already did that, right? Like I already went through this process. Why in the world am I having to do it again? What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. We always have to be honing these skills. Nothing. We always need to get better. Again, I'm not trying to say like we need to be perfectionist A+ students. You only need to be as good at marketing as you need to be to keep your pipeline full. That's the only, unless you're a marketer, in which case then you still need to be focusing on the marketing for your clients. We need to have a balance between the two, but the fundamentals are always going to be a thing. And nobody wants to hear that, because it feels like, well, where's the secret? Where's the extra formula? Where's that formula that's a guarantee for success? Where's the thing? Literally what's working, like the non-secret secret, if you were to like not take away anything else from me today, what's working is what's always worked in business. The foundations is what's working. It's not a secret. Like it's not that interesting. It's not sexy. It's not a trend. And yes, all of those things also can serve, but I think that's what has made this year and last year such differentiators for so many businesses, because we just that's just what we have to do. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples. Are you mad at me for saying you have to get better at the basics? Okay. Because we have longer sales cycles, Jen mentioned this too. Because we have longer sales cycles, right? And it takes longer, we need more touch points to buy. Our buyers are more discerning. Again, not saying that's a bad thing. We want to make sure that we're staying in something long enough to make it work. The general rule has always been at least 90 days. If you have a new offer, a new funnel, a new strategy, a new platform, longer if you have a new platform, but like minimum 90 days before. And I don't mean before you get a result. Yes, hopefully you will get a result in 90 days. But I mean that the data from less than 90 days is just not all that valuable data, right? I'm running ads and we never make decisions on a funnel that less than 100 people have gone through. if that's helpful. Like, and I'm not saying that that applies to every single thing, but just as an example, right? So if I'm running an ad and I'm getting 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, I can make some small changes and I can tweak. I can definitely see like what's not working and what's working, but it's all sort of relative. Really, I just need more data to be able to make good decisions, right, on an ad. And that's kind of a micro example of like the macro in your business. If you're running something new or you're tweaking something, we cannot effectively evaluate it until we've been doing it and doing it consistently for 90 days. And I would argue, depending on what you're doing, longer, right? Like if you're starting a brand new platform, if you decide to move to a new platform, like you need more time to put into that to grow your following, to get traction, as an example. And so what comes with that are this unsexy things that nobody's talking about, but my clients and I this is like a big piece of the work that I'm doing with my clients, especially after we've been working together for like 3 or 4 months and like gotten some of the basic things, or sort of the like, okay, all this shit's changing, how do we sort of land the plane here? Once we move into like ongoing maintenance mode, we're testing, we're iterating, we're refining, we're optimizing. Like, it's the tiny adjustments as we go versus these big like new offer, new strategy, new this, new that. I'm all for the new thing when it's right. But with that is part of getting better at the fundamentals, right? If we're saying like simply we're just going to get better at marketing, like, okay, great. Let's look at our content. Let's look at what we're putting out. Let's look at how it's performing. Let's look at what its purpose is. Let's look at what it's bringing in. Is it doing its job? If this thing worked, let's do more of that, right? If this thing didn't work, let's find out why. And then either let's not do it or let's tweak it and adjust it, right? That's not the sexy part of business, but that is what running a business is. And so I think this is what makes us think that we're not doing it right. And it's also the thing that the mindset of, I'm just going to stay in this, right? I've done this thing for 90 days. I'm just going to stay in it until I've optimized it. I'm just going to stay in it until I find the refinements that I need, versus, well, that didn't work. Now what? I better start something new. That is actually the long way. That's the long way to get somewhere. But it's hard, it's confronting when you don't have a quick instant dopamine hit of a result, right? Or even like of the results that you wanted, right? Like my client who had 4 people sign up before her launch, like she was so ecstatic and so happy, and also was like, yeah, but I wanted 8. Right? And I'm like, yeah, you haven't launched yet, right? But in her mind, she had launched like 2 months ago when she started putting the program together, right? She was tired of talking about it. She was tired of putting it in her brain, she'd been going for 2 whole months, and her people didn't even know about it yet, right? And so it's never as fast as any of us. We never get the results as fast as we want it to, because we want the quick hit. But the staying in it, the like, oh, crap, that didn't work. Okay, wonder why. Instead of, what the hell is wrong with me? I can't do this. Never mind, I'm out. Right? So testing and iterating is part of the basics. Being willing to get good at something, being willing to go backwards, which really isn't going backwards, but sometimes it feels like going backwards. If you feel like you've done something already in your first few years of business and here you are again, picking it up again, that's not wrong. That's actually running a good business, because when you let something sit for too long, and the industry changes, right? That's why a lot of people had problems with the industry changes, is they didn't know the industry was changing. They kind of had their head in their sand, in the sand. Same with me. I had some things where it took me a while to be like, why is this not working like it used to? But I was just still doing it like I used to, because we weren't used to that much change at a time. And so the adjustment was sort of, took a minute. But being willing to do that, like, it's humbling in some ways. But again, if you can just remind yourself that like this is really about the foundational business practice principles and practices and actions that we just always need to be good at. Okay, so testing and iterating, and then similarly, being willing to make a change. That iteration, being willing to pay attention. Okay, I'm not gonna freak out right now, but like, why isn't this working quite as well as it used to? Let me just look at it. Instead of deciding that something's wrong with me, just being able to come to it with a neutral perspective. And that's a lot of times what I'm helping my clients do, is like, let's work through the mindset stuff and the meaning that we're making of it, so that we can then go, okay, great, now let's just look at the numbers. Oh, I've put a new program out and it's been 10 days. Maybe I need to give it more time, right? Because in your brain, time is not the same, right? And that's why the 90 days is helpful. I literally sometimes will be like, what is today? What is the date? Like, and we will look at the calendar on a call to level set, like, okay, wait, that's only been 3 weeks. We just need more time. Okay, fine. Things are still working. We're going to keep taking action, right? So being willing to change and shift, staying in it. I feel like I've already said that. These all kind of go together. But staying in it with the strategy long enough. And then I have a couple of examples, right? The Knicks. I'm a big basketball fan. I'm actually never was really much of a Knicks fan, but I love their story. They just won the championship, and I want to use them as an example. Like, what do you think they're doing? Like, how did they get there? Right? Yes, they won games. Yes, they did things. They freaking went to practice every day, like for their whole lives, right? How many times have they shot free throws at practice? They are the best in the world at shooting free throws or shooting 3-pointers or shooting whatever, right? They're the best in the world at this moment of these things, right? I could be the best in the world of like sales calls. And again, it doesn't mean that like I need to spend all my time, I'm not a basketball player, I don't always spend all my time practicing that, but like if I'm not always paying attention to that and honing my craft, I will get rusty, I will get out of shape, right? I will get whatever, right? And so just to remember, like, no, we're not athletes and we don't need to apply all of the things the same way, but those guys are getting paid millions of dollars and they're still doing the basics every freaking day, right? And so if they're not too good for that and they know that that's how they get success, that neither, we don't need to be too good for that either. And again, I don't think that it's really about feeling like I'm too good for this, but I do think we get a little bit of that when we kind of make ourselves wrong for feeling like we're going backwards, and really like the basics are just always the thing that we need to be working on, the fundamentals. And then I also like to think about it putting in the reps, right? We just need to put in the reps, right? I've been running ads since February. They're going great. I feel really solid about one of my evergreen funnels. And I don't need to look at it every single day, but I need to put in the reps. It's a learning curve, right? If I'm gonna like get better at this, I just need to keep putting in the reps. It's not like and in fact, if I learned it and I did a fantastic job, like in the first 2 weeks, I probably honestly like wouldn't have learned much. Like it wouldn't have helped me on my next ads. It wouldn't have helped me with my client to look at my clients' ads to see what's wrong. Like if I don't know it's not like a proper learning curve, right? If I'm a basketball player and I'm just shooting against somebody who's not as good as me and I'm always winning, I'm not actually learning as much as when I compete with somebody who's better than me, right? And then the other thing I want to share also, I recorded an Instagram story. I think it's coming out. I think it comes out tomorrow, about this. But so I've been running ads since February. I went to put my ads together for next week's masterclass, and the tech blew up on me. And something that takes me like 20 minutes took me like, I don't even know how many hours. Like I really wanted to throw my laptop out the window. And I was mad. I was really pissed. Don't get me wrong. Like I was losing my shit. I hate technology. And I just was like, no, we're going to do this. Okay. And then I would like leave, get on a client call, go have my lunch, whatever, come back. Okay, we're going to do this, right? Like I made it happen. The ads are running. It's fine. It took me 3 days later to get them out than I wanted to, but like I got them out. And one of the things that my coach reflected back to me was that, right? She's like, you just stayed in it. Like that wasn't objectively hard, right? Like it was annoying, right? But it wasn't objectively hard, but it's also the thing that some people just are like, oh, ads don't work for me. Oh, I need to delegate all this out. Oh, I need to like, this isn't going to work for me. And then maybe I just won't run it for this thing, right? And I was just like, no, you fucker, I'm gonna make this work, right? And so I think that's just another example, right, of like not being too good, letting yourself be humbled, letting yourself work through. I very much worked through my mindset and my feelings last week, and also I just pressed the buttons and found a way to work it out. Okay, number 4, what's working, and I promise I will let us go in a few minutes, is what I am now calling, I've had different names for this in the past, but what I'm now calling rich networks. That's the name of next week's masterclass. If you're not signed up for next week's masterclass, in fact, let me just throw the link here in the chat real quick. Would love for you to come. It's totally free. It is also what's working this year, and it's the reason that I needed a whole masterclass to talk about it instead of using it as one little piece today. This is the strategy and the approach that I've used since probably, I need to go back and look, but I think it's like since my 3rd year in business, so 5+ years. It helped me replace my corporate salary. It helped me get fully booked for the first time. It helped me last year was my 2nd best year in business. I'm already on track to beat that. It's probably gonna be my best year in business this year. Not gonna jinx myself. And last year I worked less, to the point where I literally went back and checked. I only posted on social media 1.7 times a week. So it's less than twice a week, right? Everybody's like, oh, you need to post every day, blah, 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 right? Because I have what I call rich networks, and we're gonna talk all about what that means. And because I've set that up in my business, I spend a lot of time on marketing. I'm not sitting here telling you that you don't need to do your marketing, but I can make it more efficient, and it works really well for me. I have people, Real Connections, that just grows by itself at this point. 62% of our new people from Real Connections comes from word of mouth. So that means only 38% comes from Laura putting out a social media post out there and bringing in new people. And so just to say, like, this approach has worked. It has always worked. It's based on the basic business principles that we've been talking about today. But it's working better now. It's even working better now. Not just because I've been in it for 5 more years, but also because it's just what's working right now. And so the cool thing is, what I love about it is this is the thing, like I said in the beginning, a lot of the stuff that you already are good at, I guarantee you, is baked into this strategy. If you can just take some things and elevate them to the top, it will make a big difference. So I'm really excited about this. I hope that you will join me. A couple of quick things I want to say about it. It works with any strategy. So it's not about networking, but it works for networking. It works for social media. It works for speaking. Whatever your strategies are for marketing, you don't have to change your strategy. But it is about how do you develop real relationships with people, strategic relationships with people, with your audience. So whether you're networking, whether you're creating social media, to create that like real connection with people, and the real networks that then help grow your business that sort of creates the compound effect. Without overworking, without posting all the time, without putting your, one-on-one coffee chat calendar out the door and like getting to a point where you have an introvert hangover because you've talked to so many people. You don't have to do too much. I think that because of what's changing in the industry so much, yes, we really do need to quality over quantity with our marketing. And it needs to be efficient. And I think way too many people have been burnt out by just overdoing it. And so we will also talk a lot about how to set those boundaries, how to find the line to draw. Because I think that really is the difference between just post all the time and like posting with a strategy and having boundaries and knowing kind of how to get that going. Because trust is queen. Trust is queen, right? That's the thing that we really need in our business. And that comes from real relationships, strategic relationships, and doing that efficiently so that you're not overworking, so that you have plenty of time to serve your actual clients. So join me next week. If you haven't already signed up, I would love to see you. It's completely free. I will also be giving away a free strategy session. So we're giving away a free mini session today, but I'll be giving away a free 1-hour coaching session worth $500 for anybody who joins me live. So you'll be entered to win that there. But really, it's a conversation that I think we need to be having. So I'm really excited to offer you that. Okay, I'm just gonna quick check the chat. Questions, comments, was this helpful? Does it make sense? Yeah, you're welcome. You're so welcome. I'm just gonna quickly look here so I can see everybody's face. Okay, thank you for joining me. I will see you next week. I'll stay on if there's any last questions. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you, Beth. Good to see everybody. All right. See you next week. Bye.